Al Snow, and Mike Bucci.
Hey, hey.
What's up, guys?
Yeah.
Hi, guys. How are
We made
you?
it.
Yeah, we made it.
Al Snow. I remember watching Al Snow as a kid, man. This is amazing.
Little kid. Me too.
Yeah. I'm in my 40s, so I won't do you that bad.
Yeah. Well, I've had some people in their 40s and in their late 40s tell me they've been watching me as a kid. So, yeah, I've been around that long. So,
Yeah, Al, I grew up in the territory days watching wrestling from the Olympic Auditorium. And
yeah,
my dad used to take me and my brother when we were 9 and 10. This is back
yeah.
like in 1968. And you were one of my favorites then, too.
Yeah. It was good times back in the '60s. You know, I loved coming out into Los Angeles in the Olympic and working with PL Blanco and you know Ray Stevens and John and Chris Tolis and all the boys. I loved it.
There you go. Well, man, it's really good to see both of you guys. And being I know you and Al are friends, because I know you're a fan and you're a student. I would say this, guys, dive in. If you have, I have a ton of questions, but I really do want to turn it over to you two. To
Yeah, my main question would be, as you're watching wrestling now in its current stage, what has been the part that's been the most enjoyable for you to see, like the development of it?
Well, I think for me, one of the things that I've seen that's the most enjoyable is its continued growth. You know what I mean? That it reaches a bigger and broader audience. And you guys, I know Bean and Rick and Mike and yourself, Kasim, you will relate to this. I think one of the biggest joys is seeing that the boys in the locker room, the locker room enjoys getting paid more, and getting more benefits from, going out there and doing what they do and sacrificing themselves physically. They can make more money these days. The platforms are bigger. They reach more of an audience. And as a result, the opportunities to be able to profit from those platforms are ever increasing. So, that's probably the biggest thing that makes me the happiest
Very
to
true.
witness.
I think Jake Paul would have somebody running for his money. If you were the same age as Jake Paul, I think you'd be a bigger box office draw with the way that we have media.
Yeah, I think that fight would bring so much attention to the world of fights. I mean, if you go online and look up Jake Paul versus Butterbean, there is so much you talking about it as it is right now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You got heat. You got it.
He's over.
Podcast, folks, but
yeah, you're over, Bean. You gotta capitalize on it. You got some heat. You gotta make some money.
And I've got to add this too, Rick. I never told you this, Rick. I've actually met Butterbean before, and he might not remember this. This is where I became a Butterbean fan for life. So we're going back at least 10 years ago, Rick. Do you remember when there was an MMA show in Connecticut that was supposed to go on?
Yeah.
I was working talent relations. I came down there to see you, and God bless his soul, the late Sean O'Hare. So I already know it's going to be an interesting night. So I'm very inconspicuous because in talent relations, if something goes wrong, I really don't want anybody to know that I was there. So sure enough, in classic promoter fashion, the show does not go on. The villagers basically have their pitchforks and torches looking for the promoter who owns the money. Somehow at 1 a.m. I wound up.
Which wasn't me, by the way.
No, it wasn't you, but I wound up in a hotel room with Rick, Sean, a bunch of MMA guys, and Bean, who was the voice of reason amongst all these human beings who wanted to get this guy and kill him. But Eric was so colloquial in his speaking that I actually said to you, Rick, afterwards, hey, I don't know him well, but if I ever get a felony and have to go to court, I want Butterbean to represent me. That's how he was so level-headed and so such a businessman. And Sean was the opposite. Sean wanted us to go find a human being and kill them and take their money. And Butterbean's like, well, we can't do that, guys. And I just remember sitting and looking around saying, how did I get here? Like, this can't be real. So that's how I first met Bean.
I remember quite well.
Yeah. Speaking of that, how did I get here? What's one thing, how did I get here? Outside of that one, that you can remember right through the vastness of your career. What was one of those highlights that you're like, oh wow, that one? That's the one that would be on my deathbed. They're gonna talk about it.
For me, when I did a skit with Stone Cold Steve Austin on Monday Night Raw, I was Simon Dean at the time, and I was selling the patented Simon system that I had, and I was in the ring. We did 9 minutes unscripted against who I considered to be one of the best talkers ever in Steve, and I sold him the products off the cuff. He hit me with a stunner. The crowd went nuts. It was, for me, it was like one of the few points in my career where I looked around and said, wow, man, I made it. Like from a kid with no hook in the business, no in, from watching pay-per-views on my mom and dad's floor at their house in Keyport, New Jersey, to be in the ring with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And a dude who was like 5'10", 200 pounds could do that. It showed anybody on earth that, you know, if you roll the dice, sometimes it's going to come up 7, man. You get it. So
I thought at first he was talking about the show. I think it was in Connecticut. I think you were there, Rick. The doctors come back and said, out of all the athletes here, Butterbean's in the best shape out of any of y'all. And it was like all these blood pressures through the roof and everything. And the doctor said, and Butterbean's like the only healthy one here.
You know what? I do remember that, and it's like so ironic. If you think about who was in that room, I mean, like as Mike was telling, Sean O'Hara, who's a specimen. Although Sean, and I love Sean to death. You guys know that. Sean was high as a kite the whole time we're there, so it's not surprised he didn't pass the drug test. Mark Kerr was there.
Mark Kerr was there. I think Randleman was there too.
And Bob South. And
yep.
Yeah.
We had the room, and Bean was the voice of reason. You're right. Yeah, and they called. You passed the physical. You were one of the few guys that are actually going to let fight. You're right. I remember that. It's amazing. Amazing. So, Nova. By the way, guys, Mike. You know, Mike is Mike Bucci, of course, known in WWE as Simon Dean. But to me, he'll always be Nova. I can't help it.
Yeah, he'll always be Nova.
Yeah. Nova.
Right. So you hear that. You hear the name Nova. You know who I'm referring to. I wanted to tell real quickly the story of how we met and how I became a Nova fan. And, you know, my brain is old and adult, so I'll probably get something wrong here. But to the best of my recollection, we're back at the aforementioned Olympic Auditorium. My company at the time, UPW, was hot. ECW was in town in LA, I think maybe for the first time ever. And I got passes for myself and a bunch of my guys. And we're backstage hanging out. Everyone was being really nice to us and really polite. You guys apparently were on the lookout for Rob Black and XPW. And we're not going to treat them very well if they showed up.
Let's not get into that.
I remember that. And this guy comes running, and I have to also say this disclaimer, and I hate to say it, it's blasphemous. I never was a real student of the game, other than being a huge fan in the territory I grew up in and reading about like Bruno in the magazines and whatnot. So this guy comes like running up to me. It's like, hey, Rick, I want to say it's nice to meet you. I've seen your shows, you know, the Discovery documentary. And I'm like, that guy's really cool. Who was that? They're like, oh, that's Supernova. And I didn't know because you didn't have your gimmick on. No. And I'm like, that guy's really cool. And I just, it always stuck with me. And then about 5-6 months later, UPW was on fire. One of our top talent, the Hardcore Kid, who later fought Butterbean in Hawaii, by the way, in a shoot fight. Mike, I don't know if you know that or not. But
no, I didn't know that.
Fought MMA in Hawaii. Aaron opened the fight with a flying drop kick. That's another story for another day. So, in any case, we had the opportunity to pick a new tag team partner for the Hardcore Kid. And I said, of anybody that's out there right now who might potentially be available, who would you be interested in? He said, Nova. That's what he came up with. So I was able to find your number, call you. We had a great conversation based on our one meeting. You came out, saw it immediately that you and the Hardcore Kid were not a good fit for each other. That's not on either of you, but you matched perfectly with Frankie Kazarian. You guys became Evolution, our best tag team ever. And then in my mind, one of my best friendships ever in the business was born with you. You was always so amazing to be around, and I wanted to pay tribute to that here.
Thank you, RB. I mean, that's exactly how it happened. I couldn't believe I met you at the Olympic. I knew all your history, went right up because I was a student of the game. And then our friendship over the years. If you were like, you just called me about a week or so ago and you said, Nova, I need help with something. I might be in Louisville. I might not. Can you help me, buddy? And it always takes me a day or so to get back to you, but I do. And then I said, we can get this done, Rick. I said, my only cost is when you come here, we have to have dinner. That's it. But I would do anything for you, man. You know that.
Well, thank you, man. Much appreciated. And I had to pay tribute to that. And then let's talk Al Snow a minute here. Truly one of like the true historians of the business, and such a resume. And being, I know you know Al well, so I know you have some. Looks like you have something you're dying to say. I hope you do. But Al, I need to show you this first. I don't know if you can see it or not.
Okay.
I said we didn't have much history together, but
Right.
you remember this?
Oh, I remember. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember. Yeah. I remember it well, Rick.
Putting Al Snow up for the airplane spin back to John Levitt's comedy club where Roddy Piper was headlining.
That's right. Yeah.
That's strange.
You had those.
Put people in the helicopter spin. He's not yet quite got me up there yet.
Yeah.
Maybe one day. That's why I'm losing all this weight, so you can do that, Rick.
Thank you, Bean. Much appreciated. Much appreciated. So,
you had those two girls with you that night that they grabbed me and like scared me. Like I was afraid for my physical well-being that night.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. Al, it's the little we have hung out. It's always been great hanging out with you. And the tribute that I want to pay to you is that you're so well known in the business and so well respected. And a lot of people would say, with respect, the term old school. You hear that a lot. And
sure.
That's a good thing in our business. And
I think so.
I knew you were from that Louisville area, or spent a lot of time there. Or another gentleman who has not been very nice to me is the guy there, or was the guy. And I won't name names, Jim Cornette. But Al, like when we met him, like this guy's probably not going to be very nice. And it's like, you were always the nicest, most gracious, most professional guy. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I have always, within wrestling, but also within life, I've tried to treat people the way that I want to be treated. You know what I mean? I mean, it's a very simple approach, but I really want to try to make people feel the way that I wish that people would make me feel, and address people in that manner. So, it's the old golden rule, treat people the way you wish to be treated. So that's all. Nothing big, nothing fancy.
Al's got the arms out ready to give a clothesline already. I'm looking at like, this man's still working out like he's about to go in the ring.
Well, I'm still working out, but I'm not ready to go back in the ring. Unlike Butterbean, who's losing weight and wants to fight somebody.
Yeah.
I don't want to fight anybody. I don't want to fight my way out of a paper bag. So,
what was the most memorable fight?
What's that?
The most memorable fight that you had?
Kasim, so many people ask me that. And
first wife.
Yeah, maybe probably my second, actually.
The second one.
Probably the second one, yeah. That'd probably be the most memorable
I guess
fight.
I can help rephrase it by saying, what was the fight that you look back and say, that was a pivotal moment in my career that actually catapulted me further down in my your successful path?
It's the hardest question, and I'm sure for like yourself or even for like Mike or Butterbean, like to me, it's the hardest question to answer. And the reason it is if you truly love, like, I got to be honest, like I am so in love, and this will, you know, this will be a testimony to how messed up I am, but I am so in love with being a professional wrestler. And every time I have gotten in the ring, honestly, whether there's 10 people there or there are 10,000 or there are 100,000 people, like the magic in that moment, like when you're in there, like, you know, Kasim, like, you know, Mike, Butterbean, you guys get it. Like when you're in there, you don't care how many people are in the ring, you know, with you in the building. What you care about is you're in that moment and you feel that energy and you feel that's the place you feel most alive. Am I not right? I mean,
100%.
yeah, and to ask somebody, like if I were to ask, you know, either one of you, any of you, Mike or Kasim or Butterbean, if I were to ask you, name one time, but every time you walk out there, like it's the thing you want to do. I mean, I you know, I can't describe that to a person who's never done it, to live it, to experience it, to feel it. That, and then you're asking me to, out of 40 years, pick one moment. You know, I, I'm sorry, I just can't. I mean, you know,
I got a
I
better question
That's even
for
better.
you. My question is like, I think better.
yeah.
What's the one match that you didn't really go the way you wanted that you would love to redo that match over?
Oh, geez.
Dog
That's a lot
kennel.
easier question to answer because there's one that sticks out that, man, I just wish I screwed that match. Some
Yeah,
like,
I'll
what
tell
was
you.
some match? I mean, everybody's had a fight or a match like that. I know they have. Heck,
I'll tell you.
a football fight or
I'll tell
something.
you.
Everybody's got that moment.
I'll tell you. I got a bunch of those.
I got a
Got
bunch.
more than I can count. But there was one moment in Royal Rumble. I don't know the year because I can't keep track of those things anymore. Can't keep track of years or time or anything.
Who
But
can?
yeah, but there was a Royal Rumble. It was in Madison Square Garden, and I was in the ring. And they played the Rock's music, and I'd already done an angle with the Rock, and you know what I mean, and like I'm sitting there waiting on him, and as he comes in, he's sliding under the rope, and I can hear him say something under his breath, and I think that he's telling me to back off so he can do something with somebody else. And what do? Like an idiot, I back off. I stand there with my dick in my hand and I don't go after him. And I, you know, even though when I hear his music, I'm like standing there like, you know, let's go, let's go. And then he slides in. I just let him slide right past me and I let him go to somebody else. And that's probably the biggest regret that I have is that, you know, knowing what I know now, that if I'd have known then, I'd have just went ahead and done what I needed to do, and I didn't. And that's the biggest regret that I have in the business is that, you know, I screwed up that moment because, you know, in any you know, in your guys's in you know, Mike and Rick and will attest to the same thing. We work towards moments. We work towards, you know, literally 3 to 30 seconds
Yeah.
of a moment. You know what I mean? You know, you work towards that moment. That's what sells the house. And letting the Rock slide past me when I'm standing there selling like I'm waiting for him to come to me was a big mistake. It was just, you know, it was I want to kick myself in the yam bags for letting that happen.
That goes in the file. Shit happens.
Yeah, I know, but boy, oh boy,
You didn't realize that at the time, though. You didn't become more aware of that at the time.
I didn't until as he was sliding past me, and I went, boy, I did that one right up the poop chute. That's, you know what I mean?
I think that was 2000. The 2000 Royal Rumble. I'm almost positive because you told me that story before. I'm almost positive that's what it was.
It was not good. Not good. So, not good. Not considering what we were selling, and then I did not sell it. So, it's amazing that I've still had a career, considering all of that.
I like the dog kennel match better. The dog kennel match was better.
Well, that one wasn't my fault. Yeah, that one wasn't my fault. But the others.
Tell them that. Tell them the dog kennel.
Thank you. I will, Mike. Thank you. I want to relive that. And I appreciate you bringing it up. Thank you, Mike. So I do an angle, an angle meaning a storyline. Vince Russo comes and approaches me because he's just seen The Son of Sam, the movie, where a Chihuahua speaks to the killer, the Son of Sam. Has a voice because the killer suffers from the same thing that I was trying to portray, which is schizophrenia with transference disorder, which means that he transfers his sickness on the thing he hears the voices from. He's not crazy. The dog is crazy. Yeah. So Vince approaches me, says, "Hey, I want to do this angle." And I go, "Okay." And to my credit, guys, okay, the first thing out of my mouth is, are we going to have highly trained animals? Oh, yeah, we're going to have highly trained animals. I'm like, okay. Well, I get a Chihuahua that is somebody, they called a veterinarian clinic in Detroit and got a list of names of people who own Chihuahuas and brought a Chihuahua to the TV. Now I'm stuck with a dog that's not trained, so that to the point to where the guy I'm working with, Ray Traylor, big boss man, comes out every single night and hits the steel stairs with his nightstick so he can scare the dog so it will piss down my arm every single night because I'm holding the dog in my arm, and every night he hits the stairs to scare the dog so it will pee down my arm every night.
I remember.
So, yeah, it was awesome. Right. So the whole point was to build a story around the fact that Bassman kidnapped my dog and then forced me to eat it, which was an actual, just so you guys are aware, this was taken from an actual story from an old wrestler by the name of Mr. Fuji, who had a neighbor who had an annoying barking dog that Mr. Fuji actually legitimately hated. And when the owner of the dog, his neighbor, went to work, Mr. Fuji captured and killed this dog and then invited the neighbor to dinner and to console the neighbor and fed him his dog. Okay, that's where the motivation for this story came from. So it legitimately happened. So you understand. So Bassman, of course, feeds me my dog. We build to a match it's a hell in a cell, basically a kennel in a hell in a cell, where what they've sold is that there'll be a cage around the ring and then a cage around that. And inside the cage that's around the ring, there will be Rottweilers, vicious, aggressive, nasty Rottweilers and that the jeopardy of the match is that you have to escape the cage around the ring and then escape the dogs and get out of the cell itself without being ripped to shreds. Okay, I show up in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I notice, as I have said from day one, you have to have highly trained dogs. And I'm like, Vince McMahon and Vince Russo, we need trained dogs who are all from the same kennel, that are under voice command from trainers that are outside of the cell who can direct the dogs. Oh yeah. We're fine now.
Everybody's Rottweilers will probably happen.
Yeah. Well, here's what happened. I showed up in Charlotte, and I noticed that there were 11 different dogs with 11 different owners.
Wow.
And the reason why there was because WWE, a multi-billion-dollar company, waited until the day of the show to call a veterinarian clinic in Charlotte, North Carolina, to get names of owners of Rottweilers.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went around and interviewed all of the owners of Rottweilers, only one of the dogs had some obedience training, no actual attack training. So now the crux of the literal part of the match that you've sold to everyone, like you're selling this idea that, within the cage, there's a cage within a cage, and outside of that, there are dogs like sharks that are swimming around and are vicious and are ready to attack. And what happened was we couldn't even show the dogs on TV because they were urinating, defecating, and fornicating to the point to where the owners had to exchange names and numbers for puppy rights in the back. They were literally hammering each other out there in front of each other, with the owners who were still on leashes with their dogs on collars. And I'm like, we can't do anything with this. What are we doing with this?
Oh my God, Al! I have so many. I know to interrupt. I have to interject a couple of things. I just have so many things about this. The first, is the first second you said Vince Russo, I knew this wasn't going to end well. That was the
but it wasn't Vince Russo's fault. It wasn't. I mean, if you think of the most ridiculous, like they had like Undertaker and Kane had a, burn yourself alive match or whatever, where they had, flames around the ring. And, think of the ridiculous shit that we come up with as far as gimmicks, as far as matches are concerned, to add gravity and consequence to the win or loss. It was not the dogs, and listen, even in porn, not to work with children or dogs because they're going to upstage you. I mean, you realize
and you're get arrested.
Yeah, hello. But they were a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company that literally treated it like everyone does. Oh, it's just wrestling. And they didn't take the steps to produce it the proper way. And you have the crux of the match, that literally the basis of the entire story, built around animals that are not trained animals. I mean, what a shock. It became a joke,
Lucky Peter didn't come after you. Dude. I mean, like, Peter would be all over that.
They did. They actually did. During the actual televised part of the story, PETA did actually come after WWE and come after me for the story and for the you're teaching people to be cruel to animals. Like literally, like, come on, let's be honest. Like, you honestly think that somebody who has never done anything to an animal watched what I did on TV and went, you know what? I've had a bad day, and walked outside and kicked a cat or kicked a dog. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's just absurd.
They're worried about people running out and grabbing chihuahuas and eating them for dinner.
and Al, that's the biggest comment I had. I'm really upset that Mr. Fuji ate a dog. And
well, he fed it to his neighbor. So I don't know if Fuji ever ate the dog, but I know he did feed it to his neighbor. So
he still has heat with me, regardless.
Yeah, well,
that is, Al, I'm not like terribly surprised to hear this. When I had UPW in my territory back in the day, and Nova, you probably around for some of these incidents. I would get in WWE or WWF at the time, was in town for a couple of shots. I get these last minute calls from either JR or Pritchard or Briscoe, and they'd be like, "Hey, we need an old couple to play Ma and Pa Dudley, and we're gonna they got to take the finisher, the off the shoulder deal through the table from Bubba Ray, and they want old overweight people to play their parents, right?" So I found like a couple of workers, if you want to even call them that, who had their last match like 30 years ago. And I'm explaining this to Bruce or Jerry, like, they'll be fine. The old lady, of course, went off in an ambulance. You know how that goes. And and then they called me, I think it was Bruce, needed in like the year 2000, when you would think wrestling bears would be a thing of the past, they suddenly needed a wrestling bear. So I found them a bear, and they asked me, "Do you think this bear is trained?" I'm like, "I really can't say." And they said, "That's all right. It'll be fine." So,
yeah.
Man, all these guys.
I was going to wrestle a bear on a show called Man vs. Beef. PETA put a stop to it because I was going to hurt the bear, they said.
Shit.
Wow.
Let me tell you something. Butterbean, let me tell you something. You're an amazing, honestly, you're an incredible, but the one thing I'll guarantee you, you would not hurt that bear. I promise you. You know why I know? I wrestled a bear. And it was the worst experience of my life. I'm telling you. I have never dealt with anything like that. I'd wrestle you before, and I would never wrestle you, but I would wrestle you before I would wrestle another bear. I'm telling you, it was
the bear like 3 years later ended up killing the trainer's brother.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, you know why? You know why? Because it's a bear. It's a bear.
Bear.
You should have had a bear kennel match instead of the dog kennel. It would have been a lot more exciting.
Yeah, it would have. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to do it. But I mean, I played around with it for like a week prior, just to become friends with it. The bear loved Twinkies. I bought a Twinkie.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but you're not going to become friends with it because it's a bear and it's going to kill you. Yeah, trust me.
I saw a special on TV. The lady was she had this pet python, and the python would lay next to her in bed every day and like stretch itself out next to her.
Because she was sizing her up to eat her.
It's a wild animal. You're not going to tame it. Never.
Animal Planet had a show, and I don't even remember the title, but it should have been Guess What Happens? It eats you. And all these stories of people who had exotic animals, and what a surprise, the exotic animal ate them. What a shock. It's an animal.
You're not getting into heaven if you die like that. Like if you go
you're not.
And they say, "Hey, why are you here?" "Man, a python killed me. It ate me." He's going to laugh and throw you back. You're not getting into heaven.
On top of that.
Yeah, well, you're an idiot. You just go back down. You need to learn more. You're a moron, And for all the people out there listening to this and like, oh, they're dissing people that like special animals. You can like whatever animal you want. Like them all you want. But if they eat you, understand that's because you chose to let them eat you. That's simple as that.
I had a teammate on my team when I was in the Lions. He had a pet alligator, and I actually held it. It was a little tiny one, but that thing was so strong, and it was probably the length of my arm, but it was so strong. I couldn't imagine
Yes.
an adult one, let alone a bear. I mean,
Because
bears. No, I'm not going to do it.
because it's an alligator, for Christ's sake. I mean, it's built to eat you. That's what it is.
That's
Oh, it's so cute. It's so cute.
Yeah, then you're missing a hand.
Mike and Al, speaking of wild animals that go off script and shoot on you, who are like, can you guys give us like one example each of like what match you were in went more off script than any other, and that ended up just being a mess because of the opponent? Now, I know you guys are nice guys. You probably don't want to call that out, but you must have at least one story you could share.
I do. I mean, he's passed away now, but this was when you first start off in the business, and Al knows. I mean, you got Bean, Kasim, you guys probably know too. You start out as a young guy. I started in '92. I used to go out and do jobs early on for WBTV. So you go up there and you're an extra. So it'd be you versus the superstar. So on this particular evening, I had I hate to say it, the displeasure against wrestling against Ludwig Borga.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
I mean, the bell rang.
Yeah.
All I remember is him running across the ring, clotheslining me in the head as hard as he could. It literally knocked me unconscious on my feet. I don't remember the next 4 or 5 minutes. When I came in the back and he asked me what went wrong, I said, well, I don't remember wrestling you. And he's like, well, you should have done this. It was just like the 4th time I was ever in a ring. And, you got fed to the wolves. That's how you learn. But I learned years later how to protect myself, so that would never happen again. But back then, you just didn't know. And I don't think it was malicious. It was just accidental. He was just so big and strong and just Ludwig-ish. But, it just went south quick. And I lived to tell about it. But, yeah.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
Al, do any of you guys, well, Al, you know him, of course. Anybody else know who Ludwig Borga is?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He was massive.
So, he was Tony Holm. He had the distinction of being the Finnish heavyweight boxing champion. I don't know what it's worth to be the heavyweight champion of Finland or not, but this is a big, scary looking. Back in the day when we thought the guys who looked the scariest were the toughest guys on earth, people were deathly afraid of Tony. And Mike, we'll have to talk about this sometime, man. But I brought Tony to fight Randy Couture at UFC 13. So I had the I can't say experience of managing Ludwig Borga in his one and only MMA fight. And that's a story for another time. But, oh, my God, he's a maniac. It's all right. I can say it if you don't want to.
He passed away years ago. I mean, it sucks to say it, but, I mean, it was just – I remember he had the SS tattoos on him, and he was just like a scary – he was in Die Hard. He was a villain in that, and he was just like a cosmic figure, man. You're like, holy God. I mean, I just look back and – in my ECW days, too, nobody ever shot on me, but some of the recklessness a little bit every now and then, you were worse for wear. We learned how to protect ourselves from that. But, the Ludwig thing was for me. That was – thank God it was early on. But after that, almost everybody I've probably had several thousand matches, and they were always pretty, safe for the most part.
Do you work one-on-one with New Jack?
No, we were always both baby faces. But here's the thing, like – his violence was controlled violence, believe it or not. It was. I mean, it was reckless to a degree. When he was safe with the weapon shots. He actually could wrestle, too. That was the big rib. Like, people didn't know that. But we'd be in the ring working out for the show, and he'd be in there throwing an arm drag, a hip toss, just screwing around. That's not what people paid to see, though, when they saw him. So, but his violence was controlled. He wasn't. I mean, he was a lunatic. Don't get me wrong. I mean, him and we're not going to drive in the car together and listen to the Van Halen.
This business is a little off anyhow.
But he was what you saw was what you get. But I mean, ECW was a perfect place for him to survive and thrive. But Al and I sat around many nights looking at the entire locker room, the landscape, wondering, A, how did we fit in there? And B, like wondering who was going to kill somebody next or shoot him or stab him or just, it was insanity.
I always liked the guy. I thought he was the coolest guy, but I just had to ask if you had any kind of money. So I have a question. Go ahead. Sorry. I have a
Go ahead.
question for Al, and this is really funny. I do want to ask that same question, but you met our producer Rachel, and pro
Yeah.
wrestling is like all new to Rachel. She's learning about it. She just texted me her first pro wrestling question ever, and this is killing me. She is dying to know how Head came to be.
How Head came to be.
This is our producer Rachel. This is great.
Sure.
And we're talking about the one you carried around.
Yeah.
I always carry Head around because they don't have any arms or legs, so they can't get anywhere without me. So, which is great because they can't leave me. At the time that Head came to be, I was in WWF, and I was very frustrated. Had a bad attitude, which was totally because I had the wrong outlook, quite honestly. And I tried to quit WWF at that time because I knew that if I stayed where I was, that I would always be where I was. And I knew that I had to go somewhere else to reinvent myself and within the wrestling business get over, sell myself back literally to Vince and to Paul, to get Paul to pay to keep me, or Eric Bischoff to pay to take me, and to make myself an attraction, which I was unable to do in WWF. And the reason I was unable to do it was because I floundered, because I didn't have a definitive personality. I didn't have a definitive persona per se. No matter whether and I'm sure Kasim and Butterbean will attest to this, and, Mike as well. And that is that people don't pay to see what you can do. They pay to see who you are and why you're doing it. And I was taught that, when I first broke in, and I kind of lost touch with that. And, when I came to WWF, they, tried a couple things, a couple different characters, which characters never work. They just because it's character, people can tell it's not who you really are. And I had a bad attitude because I pointed the finger at everyone else other than the person that really mattered, which was the one person I could control, which was me. And I tried to quit, and they rolled over my contract. And unbeknownst to me, Paul was working with Vince, Paul Heyman. And, I went to Chris Candido. God bless Chris Candido. I mean, what an incredible, unrecognized, unappreciated talent. And what an incredible human being Chris Candido was. I mean, he just, when you were on a show or you were on anything, and if Chris showed up, you were like, this is going to be great. It's going to be great. I'm sure you guys know a guy like that the minute he walks in the room, you're like, it's going to be awesome. We're going to have fun. It's going to be, no matter what it is, it could be a complete shit show. You know what I mean? But the minute this one guy walks in, it is what it is, And Chris went to Paul, and Paul went to Bruce Pritchard, who was involved with talent relations at the time. And they put me on loan. They didn't let me off the contract, but they put me on loan to ECW. And, Paul had no plans for me, and no intentions for me. He did this as a favor to Chris, and I knew I had to do something and create something that got over. And, I tried different ways to show that I'd had a nervous breakdown, that I had a mental break. And the reason I did that was because I had done some things in WWF with the character that I'd had there. And the reason I did that was, I figured anybody that was as happy-go-lucky as I was would be mentally unstable. And I figured, with the ECW crowd, they had followed me throughout my career, because at that point in time, I'd been in business probably 15, 16 years, and I figured they would know anybody had been doing that long, they'd have some frustration. So I was trying to show that I had finally mentally snapped. And I tried a bunch of different things, and they never quite got over, never quite connected. And I read a book on abnormal psychology, where I had a case study. There was a case study in there about a woman who had schizophrenia, and she had what they call transference disorder, meaning the inanimate objects that she heard the voices from, she assumed were crazy, not her. She believed in her mind that the inanimate objects that she heard the voices from were crazy. So I found a styrofoam head in the back of ECW Arena, because I had just gotten done with a match with a guy by the name of Great Sasuke that was from Japan. And the Japanese photographers were taking pictures, and I found a white styrofoam head that had a bunch of paint on it, because the old ECW Arena, half of the arena they used to make the Mummers Day parade floats in Philadelphia. And I found that head, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to carry this to the ring. I'm going to talk to it, treat it as if it's a real person, and act like it's crazy, not me. And for a long time, Paul used to come up to me and he would say, "Oh, I hate your manager. I hate your manager. I hate your manager," but he never told me not to do it. And that's the one thing, like, everybody's like, "Oh, the genius of Paul Heyman." The genius of Paul Heyman is that Paul Heyman allowed the talent to be the talent. And I think Mike can attest to this, is that he allowed you to be who you were, and to develop and create who you were, and to allow it to connect with the audience. And over time, because it was who I really was, I really spoke through the head. I voiced all of my sarcastic comments and quite honestly condescending, comments. I did through the head, and as a result, the audience knew it was real. And what I tell everyone all the time, and not, and I'm sure Kasim and I'm sure Butterbean, you can attest to this. Mike, I'm sure you can attest to this as well. If people can believe in who you are, then they'll believe in anything you do. And I'm a prime example of that. To this day, and I've made an enormous amount of money, but based on one thing: people believing that I could knock another human being unconscious with a plastic head, and I can't. I mean, I can't even knock a toddler out, and I've tried. I mean, they fall down on the floor and they cry, and their parents, it gets weird because their parents are like, "Oh, I'm going to call the cops." And you're like, look, your kid should fucking sell. You know what I mean? Put it over. But he's rolling around on the floor. He's not acting like he's unconscious. He's crying. Put it over, guys. Come on, sell. You're like, "I'm going to call the cops." And you're like, well, you should call the cops on your kid, because your kid's not putting over the gimmick.
Yeah, you can't this.
Tommy Rich got blood for the head, and your kid will get right back up and run to you. I mean, come on. Smarten your kid up. Tell him to do the job. Jesus Christ.
There's in wrestling that people often overlook. There is hidden genius, and I've always been an admirer of the storylines, the angles, the work that goes into the build-up, how you build up from week to week. And I always had this question: how do you go from being one of the beginner guys, like you're one of the opening matches, to now you're getting in there and your name is there and your storylines, you're getting more creative control of your storyline. How does that shift happen? Where, like, for football, a guy gets injured, and then the backup goes in and you do well. Now you're the starter. But how does it work for wrestling?
Well,
I would
it
say
work.
that it's the crowd and the fans who are going to determine who gets to that point. Like the people in the back, Alta was Paul, Vince, whoever, they can have the best plans in the world. And I'll use us as a case study. When I was running around as a superhero with Raven and Meanie and Stevie doing our thing as misfits, but the minute we put our heads together and decided, hey, we're going to imitate the NWO, we created the BWO, the Blue World Order, we went from an opening act to a group in less than a month who had the best-selling T-shirt, not in ECW, in professional wrestling. Where here we are 25 years later, we were featured in the Retromania video game that came out last year. Now, Al's part of the new ones coming out, Wrestling Metaverse. That's going to be out later on this year. The BWO is featured in that. So it was just a weird lightning in a bottle that we caught. The crowd went bananas for it, and it couldn't be held back. They had to run with it. So it's, we probably could have done a couple things differently to take it more serious, but I mean, it had a limited shelf life, but we ran for it all we could. But the fans are the ones who are going to determine who's going to jump out.
That's true. That's true. But even with, and I think even in your realm with Kasim and Butterbean, I think you guys will agree that once you walk through the curtain, for Mike and I, okay, the only thing, quite honestly, the only thing that's fake about professional wrestling is that we know who's going to win before we walk out to the ring, okay? Yeah. But your job is the same as ours in the sense that when you walk through that curtain, not only is your job to win, which obviously it is, okay, but it's also, you can win every fight. Okay, there are plenty of fighters who win every fight, but can you draw money with them?
Yeah,
you can't. You know what I mean? If I book a fight with Butterbean and you, Kasim, what am I selling? I'm not selling whether or not either one of you can win. I'm selling who you are, and I'm selling, okay, that who they are could ultimately be the thing that motivates somebody to want to pay to see it. You know what I mean? Because that's what people pay to see. Yeah. They pay to see who the two of you are. They don't pay to see, oh, he's a really good boxer. Well, big deal. I don't give two shits about that, because I can't relate to the technicalities, to the performance, but I can relate to, hey, I like Butterbean. I kind of relate to him, or I like Kasim. He's cool. He's hip. He's, you know what I mean? And yeah. I want to see Kasim beat Butterbean. Well, I want to see Butterbean beat Kasim. That the who is what sells, not
I think that's why my career went so well, because I put butts in the seats. They wanted to watch me do what I did.
Your story is amazing. That's why
that's what sells.
Yeah,
that's what sells.
Yeah, you would know when the crowd was there to see Butterbean. It's like I got to stand in Japan with him where there's 70,000 people indoors, and before he even lifted his hands up to get in fighting stance, the audience would just go nuts on the entrance because he's this affable guy everyone relates to and loves. You could not be more right, Al. 100%.
Absolutely, it is always, even modern sports, football, basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, you take it around the world, cricket, okay? People don't realize the top 3 televised sporting events in the world are, number 3 is the World Cup of Rugby. Mm-hmm. Number 2 is the World Cup of Cricket.
Yeah.
Number 1 is the World Cup of Soccer. Notice I didn't mention the Super Bowl. It's not on the list at all in the top 10 of the round the world sporting events, okay? It's a matter of relatability. And the one thing that everyone can relate to is who you are and why are you fighting. And into a testament to Butterbean, who was a draw. Butterbean was a draw. He was a major draw. And the reason he was because you could relate to who he was and you wanted to see him win. Period.
I've got a question for Mike along these lines. And Rachel, are you going to kill me for going long? If you are, let me know, please.
Don't kill him.
Don't kill him.
Oh,
Don't
yep.
kill
Rachel's going to crack the whip on me, you guys. She's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. And I mean that sincerely. She knows that. Mike,
Yes.
Al's been talking about inhabiting the character and believing who you are to get over. Now, I know of at least 3 instances when you had a character that was very over. And that's Nova, that's Evolution, and that is we could talk about that if you want, and that is Simon Dean. But they're so different, all 3 of those characters. And maybe there's a couple of similarities, but if there are, I'm not seeing it. How do you inhabit 3 so different characters and get them all over as being who you are?
Well, each one of them was an evolution, so to speak, in what I was doing at the time. When I was Nova in ECW, I was under 200 pounds at the end of that. I got jacked, long hair, the cool outfits. I mean, I was a maniac. I was bulletproof, 20-something years old. I didn't care how many times a week I was fighting. You could do whatever it called for, I was going to do it. And then I got a lot smarter. I go out to California. I team up with Frankie. I understood the business a little bit more on what was needed, what we were trying to accomplish, the look, the marketability. The matches became more secondary, even though I loved them. But I started to understand the business side of it more, the bigger glamour to it. And then when I furthered the training through OVW, through Rip Rogers, all the guys down here, and I started to really learn, of all the characters I ever had, Simon Dean is the truest of who I am in real life. Like, anybody who knows me knows that Simon Dean, I just threw a purple jumpsuit on. It was like talking to me right here. Like 20 years later, it's exactly who I am in real life. Like, this bullshit, phony smiles, snake oils, full of crap, is going to talk nonsense and get his butt kicked. I just wore a purple jumpsuit. It was the easiest for me to do because I didn't rehearse anything. I didn't memorize anything. I just went out there and did it. But I couldn't have done that. I couldn't have done any of that if I wasn't Evolution and Nova, because all that prepared me for the whole complete toolkit to become Simon Dean. I used to say Nova made some money, but Simon Dean make a hell of a lot more because he learned how to work. Like, I learned how to work. I learned how to wrestle as Nova. But as Simon Dean, I had the ability to go out in any arena in the world against any opponent and go for as long as they needed me to do to. If they put match time in or they took time off, live television, I didn't have a safety net, I was bulletproof because I couldn't have done that unless I prepared for that journey through all the other characters, even Hollywood Nova as BWO. Like, all those characters combined got me to be Simon. So
Is there a typical learning curve that, like, you see most, like, the average wrestler goes through a typical learning curve where they get better and you start to say, around this time they should start peaking and be the character they should be?
Yeah, what stinks now, and I love we talked about this, one of the first things on the show. What I love about the business now is I think it's a safer business today for the guys and the girls. It's a better environment. Al and I, between the both of us, with over 60 years in it, we can rattle off 100 people who have passed away that are peers that we worked with. We're not going to see this as much as this next generation of wrestlers or the ones after that.
Yeah.
Some of the pitfalls aren't there. They're smarter with their money. You're not going to see 15, 20-year careers anymore. You're just not. The slight downside is the carpenters, the masters, the technicians, the teachers, they're not around anymore to really get these guys to learn. But I also feel that the business has changed because it's not what me and Al were in. What I think wrestling has become, and I'm going to try to phrase this short because I don't want to keep this long, but I think wrestling has become an athletic contest where it's not good versus evil or bad versus good anymore. It's the audience that is seeing it now. They're not clapping or responding because the bad guy got his ass kicked or the good guy came out on top. What they're cheering is the fact and the acknowledgement that 2 professionals got together and they put this, I don't want to say routine, but they're out in the ring presenting their product to the fan. And the fan is showing their appreciation for it by clapping for it and putting it over the athleticism, what they do. Very few guys are in the knockdown, drag out, good versus evil anymore. It's now an athletic contest. The working part of it's going away. The athleticism and the characters are showcased, but it's not what it was. So this is the business has, I don't want to say evolved, but it's changed, and it's not going back to what it was. So it's going to become a television product more. I don't know if the WWE is going to be in its current state in a year, 2 years, 3 years. I think it's going to get possibly bought, and the stars will become television stars more, and the wrestling is going to be completely secondary. So it's how you present yourself to make money for the company. The wrestling has become secondary to what you are as an entity and a character, and how you can make money for them.
Wow, you know,
And
I hear Al making comments, and I'm sorry, Al, I want to say this because Sim, I don't know if you know, but Al still owns OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling, which again, respectfully, Al, is considered old school, but the place where more stars came up than any other, along with UPW, of course. But really steeped in the traditions of the business, still promoting shows, still teaching at the school, still creating television. How do you feel when you hear Nova saying what he's saying?
Well, Nova is completely 100% correct. He's right. It has changed. But here's the downside. And this is unfortunate, but it's the truth. In 1961, 1962, there was a huge event that was held at Kaminsky Park in Chicago. On Friday night, they drew 41,000 people. Now, contrary to what you've been taught by the WWE, that the only time that WWE, WWF, Vince McMahon Jr. brought wrestling out of the high schools, out of the armories, he brought it out into the stadiums, into the major arenas. No, he didn't. That's been around for decades. Okay? In 1961 or 2, I believe it was 61 or 2, they held a wrestling event on Friday night that drew 41,000 people.
Was that Buddy Rogers and Pat O'Connor?
Yes. And the main event for the NWA World Heavyweight title was Buddy Rogers and Pat O'Connor. Now, the reason I bring that up is because on Saturday night, the very next night, they ran an event that drew nearly 44,000 people. Outdrew the night before, just the night before, they drew 41,000. The next night, they drew nearly 44,000 people. Do you know what that event was? Anyone say yes?
Nope.
First WrestleMania?
A World Series game?
Roller derby.
Wow.
Guys, where is roller derby now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same place as Ringling Brothers, right?
Do you know why? Because they ceased to sell what the audience always wanted to buy. They changed.
Yeah.
Roller derby became you're old school, I'm new school, I'm selling something different. And it became something different. And as a result, it went away. The one thing from 1901 to 1921 to 1941 to 1961 to 2001 to 2021 that wrestling has always sold, that boxing has always sold, that MMA has always sold, is who is fighting and why they are fighting. Now, to your point, Mike, you're absolutely 100% correct. We don't sell that in wrestling anymore. We sell what we do. And what we do is never relatable to anyone, no different than boxing or MMA. The reason baseball, basketball, and football in the United States have enormous audiences because every one of us have done it as a child, even if it's only in our backyard or in our driveways. That's why hockey has a bigger audience in Canada than it has anywhere else. That's why soccer is bigger all over the rest of the world, and why now we have professional teams of soccer in the United States is because we've had more generations of people playing soccer, and they can relate physically to what is happening on the field. That's why cricket is the #2 most televised sporting event in the world. And we in the United States can't relate to it. You know why? I still watched it numerous times, have no clue what the hell is going on. But it draws enormous audiences that outdwarf anything you could completely imagine in the United States. Why? Because everyone has played it. Boxing, MMA, professional wrestling, you don't sell what you do. You sell who you are and why you do it. And then when you cease to sell that anymore, you cease to draw an audience. And as a result, it will fade away no different than roller derby.
That's very true. A lot of the technicians got phased out, and it became more about the just different parts of it. I used to love wrestling because when a guy got in there, his specialty, his skills were this and that. And he was fighting this guy because he was mad because this guy said that, and the storylines were so key. I followed the storylines of these guys, and you explain to people, you got to watch this show. What are you watching that for? Oh, man, because this dude did this and that, and he said this and said that.
There you go.
Back and forth. And the last match, he beat him here, and then he came out and hit him with a chair, and then he came out. Now his mom hates him too. I mean, it was a huge story that you follow, almost like reading a great book. You get sucked into it, and you want to just finish it.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. And we as performers in wrestling.
Diamond Dallas Page didn't come over and kick my ass.
Oh, that's right. You are in a camp, so to speak.
Pretty much.
Oh, and listen, Butterbean, I'll tell you right now, and I'd recommend to everyone, legitimately, honestly, I recommend to everyone that they do DDP yoga, because without a question, I recommend this to my own mother to do DDP yoga, because I'm telling you, he has a system that works. And the one thing that Dallas tells and pushes in his videos and everything he does with his training is make it to where it's your own. Make it to where you can do it so that you can do it and do it consistently. Because it's not a matter of you doing something. It's a matter of you doing it consistently every single day. And
be positive about it.
Dallas, oh my God, Diamond Dallas Page and his DDP yoga is without a question or a doubt. I've done it. And I'll tell you right now, like, I've never sweated more in my life than when I do an hour of DDP yoga. It's insane. It's incredible. It really is.
Yeah, guys, I think Bean gave us the go home there, which is probably at a good place. But I do have to ask this: DDP yoga, in all truthfulness, is it really even half as good as the Simon system?
I mean, it's up there. Dallas is a good kid. He's got a future in front of him. We'll see what he can pull off. He's a fellow Jersey guy, a true pro. I love DEP.
Yeah, I've never tried the Simon system, but I'll tell you right
I
now.
got some laying around if you need somebody.
I appreciate that. But I'll tell you right now, the DDPY, I cannot endorse that enough. I cannot, honestly, I cannot. That's the truth. That's a shoot. I've done it. I do it on a regular basis. I do it all the time. I should do it more, quite honestly. But it's really, Dallas he really has it dialed in. He really does.
It's been an honor tonight, gentlemen. I would love to come back
Thank y'all
anytime.
very much. And
Yeah.
like I said, every night, make sure you tell your people that
guys.
you know the best and that friends, they might not be here tomorrow. Make sure you tell them you love them. I love all you guys.
I love all of you guys.
Thank you, fellas.
Definitely.
You, Mike, Al, see you in Louisville week after next. We'll go have a good dinner, guys. I'm looking
We'll
forward
be
to
there.
it.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, guys.
Full time, my friend. Bean, you're looking great. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. It's been an honor, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Later,
Good night,
fellas.
guys.